Picture the last time you waited for a photo to load. 3 seconds, maybe 4. It probably felt unbearable. Now imagine waiting 3 million years. That is roughly how long it took a crocodile's skull to change shape. Slowly, patiently, barely at all. The crocodile sunning itself on a riverbank today looks almost exactly like the one that watched the first humans learn to walk upright. Same jaw, same eyes, same ancient patience. And yet somewhere, on that same riverbank, a very different creature was doing something biology had almost never allowed before. It was changing. Fast. Recklessly fast. In the blink of an evolutionary eye, its brain would triple in size. Its hands would learn to shape stone into tools sharp enough to cut through hide. Its throat would rearrange itself for something no other animal on Earth had ever needed. Language. Why? Why did one skinny, slow, weaponless primate suddenly start sprinting through evolutionary time while almost everything else around it stood still? Scientists have spent over a century chasing that question, and the answer, it turns out, isn't really about brains at all. It's about something far stranger. It's about crisis. Let's go back, not to the beginning of humanity, to the moment right before it. East Africa. Roughly 7 million years ago, the forests here are thick, green, endless. Life is, in a strange way, easy. Fruit hangs low. Shade is everywhere. The ancestors of both humans and chimpanzees live in these trees, and honestly, there is no reason to leave. But the ground beneath this paradise is quietly cracking apart. Deep underground, the earth itself is coming apart. 2 plates are slowly pulling away from each other, tearing a scar across the continent that will one day be called the Great Rift Valley. And as the land splits, new mountains push up along the crack, walls tall enough to catch the rain clouds before they ever reach the interior. The forest on the wrong side of those mountains starts to go thirsty. Now here's the strange part. This wasn't a single catastrophe. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't a flood. It was something far more dangerous. Instability. The climate didn't just get drier, it swung. Wet years, then brutal droughts. Forest, then grassland, then forest again. Decade after decade, the ground rules of survival kept changing, and that instability is where our story actually begins. Because a creature that lives in a stable environment doesn't need to be clever. It needs to be specialized. A crocodile's world hasn't changed much in 200 million years, so a crocodile hasn't needed to either. Its ambush and wait strategy still works exactly as well today as it did when dinosaurs walked past it. But imagine being an ape whose forest keeps disappearing and reappearing every few thousand years. Every specialization you might evolve, sharper claws, faster legs, bigger teeth, becomes useless the moment the environment flips again. There was only one strategy left that could survive a world that refused to hold still: flexibility. Somewhere in this shifting landscape, imagine one particular group of apes, a small band, maybe 20 individuals, standing at the edge of a forest that is thinning out year by year. Behind them, the trees they know. Ahead of them, open grassland, shimmering with heat, full of predators far faster than they are. There's a mother among them, gripping her infant close. She has never crossed open ground like this before. Her body isn't built for it. She's better suited to swinging through branches than sprinting across a plain. Every instinct is screaming at her to stay in the trees, but the fruit trees behind her are dying. The forest is shrinking. Staying is no longer safe either, so she steps forward. This single decision, repeated by countless individuals across hundreds of thousands of years, is, in a very real sense, the birth of our story. Not a single dramatic leap, but millions of small, terrified, necessary steps out of a world that was disappearing. And here's what's fascinating. The ones who survived this shift weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. Out on that grassland, a human ancestor was hopelessly outmatched. No claws, no fangs, no speed to outrun a lion. What they had instead was something researchers call behavioral plasticity. In plain terms, the ability to change what you do, not what your body is. A lion evolves faster legs over hundreds of thousands of years. A human ancestor, faced with the same problem, can simply pick up a rock. That difference, solving a problem with a decision instead of a mutation, is arguably the single most important shift in the story of our species. But a decision is only as good as the brain that makes it, and brains are expensive. Here's a number that stops people cold. Your brain is about 2% of your body weight, but right now, doing nothing more than reading this sentence, it's burning nearly 20% of your daily energy. 1/5 of every meal you eat, gone, just to keep the lights on upstairs. Picture a hungry hunter with a fire barely lit and nothing certain about tomorrow's meal, whose body is quietly starving his own muscles just to keep feeding his mind. That's the gamble evolution was making with every human born, betting that being smart would pay off faster than it cost. So why did it pay off? Because around 2 million years ago, something changed on the menu. Then around 2 million years ago, the menu changed. Meat entered the diet, and eventually cooked meat. And cooked meat packs a punch of calories that raw leaves could never come close to matching. Picture a chimpanzee's day. Hours of it, sometimes more than half, spent simply chewing, grinding down tough leaves in a gut built like a slow, stubborn fermentation vat, squeezing out calories one reluctant drop at a time. Now picture an early human by a fire instead, tearing into a piece of roasted meat. 10 minutes to cook, 10 minutes to eat, done. No more marathon chewing sessions. No more stubborn gut working overtime. And the body noticed. A gut that no longer worked so hard didn't need to stay so big. So, over time, it shrank. That freed up energy didn't just disappear. It got rerouted, straight into the brain. It's almost like discovering you don't need that extra room in your house anymore. So you knock down a wall and expand the room next door instead. Except the room here is the most complex object known to exist in the universe. But energy alone doesn't explain everything. A well-fed animal with a big brain still needs a reason to actually use it. And this is where the story takes its most surprising turn. Because the biggest threat early humans faced wasn't a lion. It wasn't a drought. It wasn't even hunger. It was each other. Picture a young hunter sitting at the edge of the fire, watching. He needs to know, without being told, who shared meat with him last winter and who didn't. Who he can trust his back to on a hunt, and who might let a lion get a little too close on purpose. Dozens of faces. Dozens of shifting loyalties, and getting it wrong could cost him everything. A lion never has to solve a puzzle like that. Its rivals don't change strategy overnight, but a human's rivals and allies could flip on any given day. That's not a problem you can outrun. It's a problem you have to outthink over and over for an entire lifetime. Researchers even gave this idea a name, the social brain hypothesis. The theory that human intelligence wasn't built mainly to outsmart rivers and rock slides. It was built to outsmart each other. And once you see it this way, so much starts to make sense. Why do humans gossip constantly? Because tracking reputations was, quite literally, a survival skill. Why are humans so exquisitely sensitive to being excluded, embarrassed, or betrayed? Because in a small hunting band 200,000 years ago, losing your place in the group wasn't just painful. It could be fatal. Being clever with tools was useful. But being clever with people? That might be the real engine that pushed the human brain into overdrive. Now here's the strange part. None of this, the changing climate, the meat, the shrinking gut, the social pressure, none of it, on its own, fully explains what happened next. Because somewhere around 300,000 years ago, something even stranger emerged. Something no purely biological explanation can fully account for. Culture. Picture one hunter, alone, spending years learning by failure how to chip a stone into a blade. If he dies before he passes it on, that knowledge dies with him, gone like it never existed. But now, picture him teaching his son. His son gets a little better at it and teaches his own children. Nobody has to start from zero anymore. A chimpanzee might learn to crack a nut with a rock, but that trick tends to stay local, fragile, easy to lose. Humans found a way to make knowledge stick, to lock each gain in place, so it could never slide backward. Nobody had to reinvent fire. They just inherited it and made it a little better. That's the real secret behind how fast humans evolved. Bodies still changed at evolution's usual crawl, but knowledge didn't need a single gene to change. It could spread across an entire population in one lifetime. It's almost like the difference between updating a phone's hardware and updating its software. Hardware upgrades, new brain wiring, new bodies, still take generations. But software updates, new knowledge, new tools, new ideas can be pushed out almost instantly, and everyone benefits at once. Once that switch flipped, humans weren't just evolving anymore in the traditional sense. They were accelerating. So take a moment and picture it all at once. A forest disappearing beneath a fracturing sky. A mother stepping onto open grassland with nothing but her wits to protect her child. A body quietly rerouting energy from a shrinking gut into an expanding brain. A group of hunters huddled around a fire, whispering about who can be trusted and who can't. A father passing down the secret of a sharpened stone to a son who will pass it to his own children forever. None of these alone created a human being. It was the collision of all of them. Climate chaos, dietary revolution, social complexity, and cultural memory happening together, reinforcing each other, feeding back into one another, generation after generation. That's really the answer to the question we started with. Humans didn't evolve faster because we're special in some mystical sense. We evolved faster because we were unlucky enough to be born into a world that kept trying to kill us in new and different ways, and lucky enough to stumble onto a strategy that could adapt to almost anything. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. If you had to guess, right now, which of humanity's ancient survival tools do you think matters more today? Cleverness with tools or cleverness with people? Would we have made it this far without both? It's worth thinking about the next time you navigate a tricky conversation at work or patch things up with a friend, because in a very real sense, you're using the exact same machinery that helped a small band of apes survive a disappearing forest 3 million years ago. And maybe that's the part of this story that lingers longest. We tend to imagine evolution as something that happened to us long ago and then stopped, as if human beings arrived at some finished, final form. But the truth is stranger and more humbling. We are not the product of stability. We are the product of instability. Every trait that makes you you, your ability to imagine, to cooperate, to remember, to adapt, exists because your ancestors were repeatedly, relentlessly forced to change or disappear. The crocodile on the riverbank never needed to become anything other than what it already was. We never had that luxury, and in a strange way, we still don't. The world still won't hold still. New crises, new pressures, new unknowns keep arriving, the same way they did for that mother standing at the edge of a dying forest. The difference is, this time, we get to decide what we pass down. If you enjoy uncovering the forgotten stories that shaped humanity, consider subscribing. There are many more waiting to be discovered.